Play your music, Franco.
White boy. You push record, Jace? You've not.
It's recording. It
Oh,
has
right.
been. This is the nonsense that you wanted to edit out.
Brilliant.
It's there. It's all there.
That's so quiet on the playback as well, by the way.
Hello and welcome to the BAP. It's the 7th of August in the Progressive Bubble. My name is Franco and joining me is Mixmaster Jason and Boring Dean.
And Granddad Gene.
Fucking ouch! I'm gone 2 weeks and relegated to boring D.
So we have to have a bit of an apology for our listeners. Apparently, from our small audience, an even smaller subset have been making live comments on the stream. But because we're surrounded by Apple products which refuse to allow us to monitor the stream, we have been unable to see those comments. However, we can promise you from next week, we will make sure we have an appropriate device.
What's happening next week?
Well, we'll make sure somebody brings their laptop in so we can monitor
Greg.
the comments.
Intern Greg.
Bring your laptop in, Greg.
God damn it, Greg. You've got 2 jobs now. Can't even do one.
So, straight into the douchebag filter. Jason, I believe today you watched the next installment, for depending on how you subscribe. For some it's episode 5,
Yep.
others it's episode 4.
Yeah,
Of
well, and
the Bourne
of the Bourne series, exactly. And just I could say there's a spoiler warning, but
Is Jeremy Renner in it?
no.
Because for me, this would be Born 2 if he was.
Oh.
No, I've actually watched the original Matt Damon. I love him. I listened to the show last week, you guys going on about and bitching about Jeremy Renner. Didn't even know his name, right? And also, when you were doing the Suicide Squad stuff, didn't know Margot Robbie's name. But you knew the male actor's name, you sexist pigs.
Jared Leto, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well. And Will, you know what? Here it is. I didn't know Will Smith was in that movie until I saw saw the trailers. That's news for me. It was news for me.
Covered that last week.
Yeah.
So you're aware of the white guy, but the women and the black man.
That's
you
right.
Wow.
I think this might be that offensive thing you wanted edited out at the beginning of the
No, not at all. So the Bourne Identity number 5 without Jeremy Renner.
As I said, I was going to say I'd issue a spoiler warning, but by saying if you see this Bourne movie, then you've seen all the Bourne movies. Is that a spoiler?
Is it a clip show?
No, it's just they've hit their formula and they're sticking to it.
It's like James Bond, really.
But better.
Yeah, better than James
Better,
Bond.
but I mean, it's the same formula.
Although
So
they
you're not
did-
going to have anything
many-
sport for you by
They
having
did
the
go
plot twist.
massively over the top with the big car chase at the end. Like usually they keep it within the realms of like, okay, nobody dies and you're just wrecking cars left and right. But in this one, to see if no one died, it's just ludicrous.
Many people, including myself, credit the Bourne movies with making them have to reboot Bond. Obviously, all of those horrible movies Pierce Brosnan didn't help either.
Yeah, and Timothy
But
Dalton.
Casino Royale was very much an answer to the Bourne Identity.
Yeah, it was good. It was good, but it was you haven't seen. There was nothing new in it. You weren't learning anything. There was no. There was
Well, that's because
nothing
they
new
tried
about
something
Bourne.
new last time. Everyone freaked the fuck out and asked, "Where's Matt Damon?" So they had to go back to the formula.
Only Matt Damon can bring personality to boring. I mean, the whole the Bourne character is
Jason
quite.
does a good job.
He's quite one-dimensional in effect.
Jason or Matt Damon?
Matt. And when they tried to get a one-dimensional actor into carry on the legacy, just couldn't quite do it. Didn't bring the Matt
wasn't the
Damon charm.
It
to
wasn't
one
that
dimension.
same one dimension. That's right. He didn't have that Matt Damon dimension.
Was he playing an older, more... Do you know the story behind their puppet in Team America is that it came out looking kind of retarded, so they made it talk retarded. It was never, ever against Matt Damon. It's just the dull shit.
We don't use the R word on this
Well, look,
podcast.
they used that word when I was watching the interview, so that's fine.
We're not giggling either.
No, not at all.
Yeah, fair enough. Anyway, so he was one-dimensional, was he? Was he playing an older, more angry, more upset, kind of sick of it?
He was just
Like
wanting
a Clint
to find
Eastwood kind of
He
Bourne?
was trying to find out what happened to his dad. Yeah, it was all about his dad this time. So he was definitely Matt Damon's showing his age. He's not looking like that young buff sort of. He's now an older buff guy. He's just beating the shit out of people as well. So, but yeah, it was good. It was good, but just not really didn't wow me the way the other Bourne movies did, except for the unmentionable fourth.
So what did Tommy Lee Jones bring to the mix?
The usual Tommy Lee sort of.
An older, whiter guy that was beating the shit out of things, I imagine.
No, he wasn't beating the shit out of anyone.
Did you notice any women or African American actors?
There was a woman actor, and she was killed within the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the movie, as per the formula. This is how it works.
Is it his love interest?
She was a previous love interest, I believe. It was
That's how he got dragged back in.
Yeah, it was Julia Stiles.
All right.
Yeah.
They brought it back for 10 minutes to cut off.
Basically.
I hate it when they do that to
Well,
quality actors.
And they did that to Franca Potente as well, which really pissed me off because she's one of my favourite actresses. And it brought her in for 10 minutes, killed her off. Just to give him some momentum as for a reason why he's going on. And they did the same thing in this one. So, yeah. But, yeah, the same formula. He's basically given going to one exotic location in the world, finding a reason to go to another exotic location in the world, where he finds more reason to go to another exotic location in the world, and all the while outwitting and setting up these elaborate sort of ruses as to get around CIA hit squads that are waiting for him and stuff like that. But it was pretty much the same formula everywhere. But it was good. It's worth seeing it, but probably a DVD movie.
Okay.
Have you seen the new Star Trek?
No,
Nor have I. That's for me as a DVD movie. I just thought maybe you might have gone around to that as well.
But I've heard, I have heard that Suicide Squad is a DVD movie as well.
I have heard very
What, sorry,
positive reviews
DVD?
from non-comic book people.
A downloadable movie nowadays. It's not really, not necessarily for the big screen, I think is what we're trying to say.
I hear it is a filthy mess. Apparently, it had 4 or 5 different editors working on the project, and it shows.
Oh, wow. They had just one guy who just edited car scenes, right?
Yeah.
And then
No,
another
I
one who
think it
just...
was like turning over of staff. I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on it. I saw all the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, and I laughed.
But apparently Margot Robbie and Will Smith are the high point of the movie, so...
I think
The
it's going to
others-
be hard when you have so many characters. How do you follow the plot lines when they have such individual characters? I think there's been movies that have done it well. I always thought the Watchmen did it pretty well.
Yeah, also critically panned. I love Watchmen.
Yeah, no, I think that's a cult classic, to be honest.
Yeah, I like Watchmen. It was good. Yeah, the ensemble movies
I
are
think
difficult
the
to-
other thing... the other
What's
thing
another
Watchmen
successful
suffered
ensemble movie? I'm just trying to think of one.
Avengers is considered.
Ocean's 11. There's
Yeah.
fucking 11 of them.
But really...
Boom,
but
ensemble.
really, it was Matt Damon.
Well,
Brad
now
Pitt.
you say his name differently.
Matt Damon, Brad Pitt, and who's that other guy? The older guy that...
George Clooney?
George Clooney. There you go. I forgot the older white guy's name.
Yeah. Also didn't mention any of the black actors either.
Don Cheadle.
Now you're right. You're right. Okay. He was that EMP guy in
Julia
the
Roberts.
second one.
She was in it, believe it or not.
I know. Look, and a woman
A woman.
on Misogyny FM.
A black man and a woman.
Some of my friends are black.
Okay, I can see you both seated because there's about a party will start in your
Whoa.
pants when I reveal this news.
Is this still douchebag news? Or is this,
Well,
like
this is
full-
still douchebag
Okay,
news.
good.
I started watching Stranger Things.
Yeah, I want
on
to talk
Netflix.
about that. It's amazing.
Yeah, I've also been told I need to start watching Stranger
You
Things.
haven't watched it yet?
Not yet.
Dude, seriously, get around to it. Make the time. It's like the Goonies meets Lovecraft
Meets the Thing.
meets the Thing.
So basically,
I may have to find a way by which I can acquire this Stranger Things.
It's on Netflix.
Well, what amazing coincidence! I don't have Netflix.
I have Netflix. I can hook you up with Netflix.
Okay.
So, I mean, when I was looking on Wikipedia just to get a few facts about it, they say I think it's the Duffield guys have made this, and they draw heavily
Duffield
upon
Brothers, yep.
Stephen King, John Carpenter, Steven Spielberg, Rob Reiner, and George Lucas, and they literally lift off from those directors.
Yeah, there's bits of it that reminded me a lot of Firestarter, which is a Stephen King.
My
novel movie.
my sons were saying it reminded them a little bit of the Goonies, to be honest.
Oh,
Very
definitely.
much, yeah. There's strong Goonies references throughout.
Which won me over immediately.
Well, I'm
big
also.
fan of the Goonies.
Would they have had to cut a deal with all those directors or whoever owned the rights to those movies to
I
say
think so.
we're going to borrow heavily from you guys? Is that okay? Are you on board
you
with
can
that?
you can just call it art, as long as you don't explicitly use character names, because you can't copyright a story.
I got a feeling from a trailer I saw of it that made it look like quite a thriller / almost maybe a bit of a psychological horror kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like Silent Hill. You played Silent Hill video games?
No, I haven't played it,
concept?
but I've seen the
Like
movies.
a parallel reality next to our reality where
Okay.
shit leaks through and it's not good.
Oh, okay.
A lot of that going on. There is definitely some psychological shit that happens.
Okay, because
But with the Goonies and laughter
yeah,
and
because
fun
when it
times.
was described as the Goonies, I'm going like, what?
Well, because of the child protagonist.
Yeah, I get it, but I was from the trailer that I saw, it didn't seem to match at all. I didn't get any of that from the
This is
trailer.
really well. They mixed together sort of 3 stories. They do like Winona Ryder, and I don't know the male actor's name. But
That's-
they do like the adults, and then they do
That's
like
just
the
how
teenage
sensitive
story,
Dean is, people.
and then they
That's
do the kids.
just how sensitive
And
he
there's
is.
these three groups all investigating the same phenomena, but independently.
How
of
do you
each other.
say that phenomenon?
Do.
Are you talking about David Harbour?
Best way to shut you down. Do.
No, but can you say phenomenon again?
But it's definitely a flashback to all your favourite childhood 80s movies.
Yeah, no, I really loved it. I think that people should watch it. It was really. It's only 8 episodes as well, like 8 45-minute episodes. I binge watched it in 2 days.
I've already knocked out 3 in one sitting. Winona Ryder. Didn't even recognise her at first.
No, nor did I. I was like, my God, this mother's an amazing actress. And then I realized Winona Ryder was like, oh my God, my opinion of Winona Ryder has drastically changed.
Yeah, like, well, the way she presents herself, you just would not make the initial click. That's Winona Ryder,
No, she doesn't look anything like a shoplifter.
or a teenage heartthrobess.
Wow, that's true. I still think she's heartthrobby.
So Stranger Things, definitely in it.
Oh,
Really good. Really looking forward to the second season. Really good. Netflix once again kicks it out of the park.
So this is a Netflix original.
Wow. Another one that's really good.
so I believe there will be a second series.
Yeah, it's been renewed. It's been renewed. So well worth the subscription fee, Netflix. Unlike Foxtel. To anyone out there listening.
Without giving away too much, because obviously I haven't seen it, did they end the first series with a we can end it here, we don't need to continue on, or if they left enough of an opening, say, yeah,
There's enough of an opening.
Okay.
They wrap up the story, but there's still some unanswered questions, and there's a few moments in the fleeting end of that episode where you're like, oh, that's not good.
So you can, if they didn't continue on, you go, well, there's enough closure there. I'm complete.
There's enough closure, yeah, but then there's the bit where you're like, oh no, they didn't get rid of it.
All right. Does anyone else have any douchebag filterage?
No, that's all I got.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on into the news section. I don't know why I do this to myself, but I've decided to monitor Corey Bernardi.
Monitor?
Yeah. You know, he's got his little...
He's got a blog.
He's got a blog, the Common
Slash-
Sense blog.
Slash stalk.
In his latest blog post from the 3rd of August, he was upset with the ABC.
We could have put this in the douchebag buffer, couldn't we?
I mean, it still pretty much is douchebag. It's the hybrid moment between douchebag and news.
This might be one entire show of douchebag because I've got another one which could easily slip in the douchebag.
I've got a Jeremy Clarkson story. So
I've got a Scott Adams one.
like that's a douchebag right there.
Okay, go for it.
If you've ever had discussions with right wingers and the topic of the ABC comes up, they start getting a big vein across their forehead and start screaming out, "Biased, biased! What, the charter? They have to be not biased." And,
Which apparently means don't say anything
Yeah.
at all negative about anyone.
unless you're going to beat down on Labor or
Yeah.
the left, you're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Not allowed to say anything negative about the right or family values.
And the whipped dog that is the ABC normally complies.
So
It's tragic that.
Corey was a bit upset about the reporting on the story on Four Corners about the Northern Territory juvenile detention and about what's been going up there. So I think we talked about this last week about the footage that came out.
Was he upset that it was factual, or was he upset that
He was upset there was no context to why the detention officers may have been using those extreme measures against the children.
Look, I've got a little bit of an insight into this. A member of my family was fairly high up in the prison system in WA. And I asked him about this situation. We got into a rather heated discussion about it. But he says, you talk to just about any detention facility and they will use those methods. And he said there were various things that happened, like, of course, there was a clip over the ear that, like, actual striking of a child that happened. And he said, well, that I wouldn't have stood for that at all. But the hooding and the restraints and that, would use them in any detention facility for someone who was behaving in such a way. And he says it's really harsh to try and come down on those prison officers for using those methods because that's what they're told to use, essentially. And I said, well, isn't that essentially the problem, that it's systemic that we're using this? Maybe we should look.
There's a
And
problem.
he says, well, unless you've got, his opinion was, unless you've got an alternate method that we can use, then you shouldn't be commenting. And we got into a various discussion about, so you can't criticise a system unless you've got a solution ready to go. But it was an interesting thing. We went a little bit deeper on that, and he was saying, how are you meant to deal with these things? And I said, well, maybe... I was talking about the fact that the prison system is being used to warehouse certain people from the community that simply don't want to be dealt with by the community, and they're just tossed into the prison system and left there to because that's why Aboriginals they make up about 2% of the population, yet they're about 25% of the prison population. So clearly there's an issue, and it may even be unfair that we're asking the prison system to deal with it in some ways, because they're dealing with it the way they're taught to deal with it, and that's not really the way when we look at it, when we see those methods in play, we really don't enjoy it. So yeah, it was interesting discussion. But
is that the angle Corey Bernardi took?
No, he
was
didn't really
it
go
as
that
nuanced as that?
he was very superficial in his comments. So he was upset about that. He was also upset about the ABC airing the claims of Cardinal George Pell's alleged inappropriate behaviour, or claims of that from 40 years ago.
Oh, right. But sorry, before we go, just stepping back to the prison at the detention centre. I mean, one of the issues, and this is what they were saying, well, there's footage of it happening to one child where they restrained him, and one child where he was struck, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, that's footage from those single instances that happen to appear on camera. These guys know there's cameras everywhere. How much of that's happening off camera that we never get to see? If it's happening on camera, I'm thinking there's a lot more happening off camera. And that's where the real problem lies. I mean, obviously it's more systemic than they want to admit. But
I guess the hassle is for them. I'm going to use us and them in this instance. The hassle is the people who are advocating violence against children. The hassle for these the prison officers, if you want to call them, is that we can only assume what happens off camera. So if you see it happening on camera, we make the assumption that that's the kind of behaviour they think is not a problem to be on camera.
That's right.
Therefore, it's happening more often. Now, it may not be happening because we have no evidence of that.
But
we make an assumption based on, hey, they seem pretty cool with that behaviour.
In fact, we didn't even have to. He was even allowing that assumption. He was going, those methods are standard methods. So he was, when I say high up in the prison system, he was the superintendent of like a maximum security prison and a broom prison. Like
the maximum security is probably a bit different though.
Very different. But he says those kind of restraints, he says they are fairly standard in juvenile detention facilities. That's what they'll do for people who reach a certain level of behaviour where you cannot manage them in any other, or they feel they cannot manage them in any other way. They restrain them and they hood them. And he says he wasn't making no apologies, saying that's what they do. So
I mean, even that's a problem.
No, absolutely. But so you've got prison personnel that are being trained to solve things in a certain way.
Yeah.
And they're sort of going, well, what are we doing wrong? This is the way we deal with this stuff.
I think it's a case of because the public hasn't been exposed to that. So these guys have been. This is normal life for us.
Absolutely.
So when the public sees it, like, oh my god,
we need to change this.
We need to change this.
Yeah.
But for those guys, they're like, but this is just.
But they feel
normal behavior.
But they feel victimized. They're going, but this is what we do.
No,
They feel victimized.
But I mean, in a way, they are victimized.
Well, yeah, because they have up until this point.
No one said they were doing the wrong thing.
That's right. Absolutely. So, but then, of course, when we want to make noise about it, everyone's kicking back and saying, because he was also kicking back and saying, well, it was resisting the offer, the chance to make the change. So they see everyone's kicking up about it and getting very upset, and they naturally are very reactionary and don't want to change, and they're very defensive about it, rather than saying, hey, well, shouldn't we be doing this? Maybe we should find some other way to do it.
Well, I mean, I guess the other thing is, though, they have to use techniques that work. If you're running a prison and you need to maintain order, then at some point, you have to make this harsh decision between order and chaos.
Yeah,
and sometimes it means hurting a child.
But
apparently,
so when I was saying we got people criticising these techniques, and he goes, well, what other techniques you got? If you haven't got any other techniques, you cannot criticise what we're doing. So he was criticising the fact they want to spend money on a royal commission and all the expense that goes to that in order to solve this problem, and he sees you don't get any results out of royal commissions. Well, if the public are unhappy with the practices that you have in place, then we need some mechanism by which to enact change.
Do you feel a little bit like politicians throw the word Royal Commission around an awful lot today?
I think it's a threat, yeah. It's
like they're just everything they want a Royal Commission into. Like it's a bit ridiculous.
Is there something less than a Royal Commission where we can go, hey, maybe we just need to do a study and figure out how we're going to fix this and without having to call it a Royal Commission? Is there
like a parliamentary inquiry, maybe?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Is there something?
I'm just making up terms now.
Because the thing he was really worried about was the expense.
They're fucking expensive.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't care if someone's people are being
they're also
mistreated.
problematic because the government of the day gets to set
and completely ignore the
parameters.
outcome if they want.
Yeah, and that was one of the things he said, like Aboriginal deaths in custody. They've had royal commissions into that, and he says, what came out of that? Nothing, because the next government came in and they totally ignored the recommendations and they were never enacted.
This is true. This does happen.
But that's not a reason not to do anything at all.
No, absolutely. But as I said, you got parties that get very defensive.
Of course.
The thing is, though, you could probably take that money you would spend on a royal commission and put it into the prison system to provide inmates with better activities to keep them occupied, like reasons to behave. Like you've got $60-something million that they cost. You could use that to better the environment.
But you might need some kind of study put in place to find out how to spend that money properly. You know what I mean? Someone needs to do the work to figure out what other mechanisms there are. And then at the moment, this is the feedback was, well, what else are we going to do? They don't even know what else.
Well, I mean, there are other countries in the world with prison systems we can look at.
Once again, I stepped down this line. I said, why don't you look at and I said, how about the Scandinavian nations where recidivism is way down? You don't have to go anywhere. But as an example, there's other places that are doing it differently. Why can't we look at them?
Well, let's look at the Philippines. Rodrigo Duterte, he's just shooting him in the street. Right? Boom. Done. Problem solved.
I was trying to steer him away from the Philippines solution.
They seem to be going further down the path they're already going down.
Because I'm almost certain that they'd leap at, some of them would leap at that opportunity. So let's not make them aware of it. Anyway, so.
Look, I'm just saying there's options. There's a field of options.
I agree, and I tried to present some of these options, but he was
I wonder how Cory Bernardi feels about royal commissions into Pope's employees.
For what?
Circling back to Cardinal Pell and your original point.
I was about to say...
he didn't say anything about that part. He just... Because they were unsubstantiated, he thought the ABC shouldn't be reporting on it. And then he made a comparison to how the reporting of the day in general, he didn't say the ABC, but just how the media did its job in regards to a high-profile politician who was accused of rape from the 80s.
Oh. Because the 80s
was a bit of hypocrisy in the way it was dealt. I can't actually remember how that particular...
I don't know.
And of course, the 80s was well known for being an incredibly enlightened period during which all sexism and
it is tough though when you when someone has just been accused of something and they haven't yet had charges laid. If you report about that and then it turns out that the charges are fabricated, and I'm not saying they are in the case of George Pell, you put yourself in an awkward position where you have to issue retractions. I think, though, from my understanding, the ABC just gave the people who are willing to come forward a platform to talk about it. Well,
the other thing is you mentioned that's quite a valid point to make. Unfortunately, it's not what Cory was making, because anyone else, you wouldn't have had a beep out of Cory, but because it's someone from the Catholic Church, Cory's right at the forefront on that one. But the interesting thing was, normally when you read Cory's Common Sense articles, the comments underneath, they're all very supportive. Yeah, right on the mark, Cory, blah, blah, blah. In this particular instance, though, he hit a bit of a nerve because it's around the subject of pedophilia. And that hit a raw point where his readers weren't necessarily backing him on this one. They were more about, well, if these sort of things are happening, shouldn't we deal with this straight away and so forth?
I am a bit shocked that is not the reaction of every right-wing thinker / member of the church in the world. If our children are at risk, family values, why aren't we doing something about this? And yet the church is very much like, they move the priests around, they shuffle the problem, they try and hide it. Like, the fuck are you doing? Like, if that guy's legitimately a pedophile and he's going to offend again, what the fuck are you doing?
I guess if you've got a group of people that are willing to suspend their disbelief to believe in some sky god kind of thing and all the stuff that comes
imaginary
along
sky
with
friend is the technical term.
Then they can be made to sort of suspend their disbelief on other matters. I guess they're already open to the idea.
That's very dismissive of
it's incredibly dismissive.
But yeah, I'm getting great enjoyment reading the Common Sense as told by Cory Bernardi. It makes for a fun, light-hearted reading.
I kind of want Cory Bernardi to go away. Don't like him. I don't like how he's so high up on the Liberal ticket for the Senate and he just continually gets in. When he wrote that blog entry about starting a conservatives.org.au, I was hoping he would just, fly off into the night, start his own Conservative Party, and then hopefully never be heard of again. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
So you don't think he has a popular, significant amount of support behind him?
He is the one member of the coalition who complained the most about the party losing votes to One Nation. So the kind of people who support Cory Bernardi, in his own mind, are bigots and racists. And I choose my words carefully when I say that to all the Cory Bernardi fans out
And
there.
of course, One Nation getting 2 seats, was it?
2 in
Four.
Queensland, 1 in New South Wales, 1 in WA.
Well, they
I
got
think.
the one extra one in Queensland, didn't they? That they weren't sure they were going to get. Suddenly came through.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I want to talk about that to segue completely into it. I'm just going to have to flip through my page till I find it. So the second Queensland senator, Malcolm Roberts, is the guy that's been elected. He is a former manager of a coal mine, a member, one of the leaders of the Galileo Institute. I want to say Institute
Galileo movement.
Galileo movement. That sounds like a type of shit one has. I'm just going to have a Galileo movement. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, he's a leader of the Galileo movement. There are a bunch of climate skeptics.
An incredibly
who believe
insightful and
that
paradigm
the
shifting shit.
CSIRO have been conspiring with the United Nations to produce corrupt climate reports. Conspiring with the United Nations.
An ex-coal
This
manager.
man's going into the Senate. Also a coal mine manager, yeah.
Ex-coal mine manager is a climate change scenario.
Yeah. Weird that.
Surprise.
But still, like this is next level conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
The CSIRO are in league with the reverse vampires of the United Nations. Shocking stuff. And I thought Pauline Hanson was bad. They really know how to pick their candidates.
Well, and people know how to vote for him. So, I mean, can we
I
can
secretly
we blame
suspect,
Pauline Hanson when we got a
I
large
kind
number
of feel
people?
like in some ways the One Nation vote is probably the same vote that the Brexit camp got and probably the same vote that the Trump camp gets, which is to say individuals living in the West who are a little bit disenfranchised with globalization and the shutdown of the manufacturing industry in all of our respective countries who just want to fucking break the system because you know what? It's already pretty shit for me. So just like, let's just tear it down and start fresh.
I'm already losing my my shit. So why shouldn't everyone?
Why should
lose
everyone
theirs?
else? I kind of think that's the same vote. I can't guarantee that is the case with One Nation because there's like a...
It's an incredibly dismissive outlook on those voters, Dean. But
I know.
one I happen to agree with.
Well, see, but the thing is, you have to understand someone before you can reach them and change their mind.
You have to understand it and perhaps know one of them. I know one of them.
You know a One Nation voter?
Yeah. I'm related to one.
Oh, that
If the audience can see the shakes,
that hurts my soul.
it hurt my soul when I found out about it.
Is it a generation up or generation down?
Generation equal.
Because if you raised
Generation
a One Nation
level.
supporter, I would shun you as a bad father.
Generation level.
Generation levels,
So
right?
why did they vote One Nation?
For no really articulatable reason, except possibly it backs up a little bit of the way Dean thinks. It's just, well, Pauline Hanson seems to have it together, and they're also very anti-Muslim. Muslim immigration, specifically Muslim immigration.
There's not
So-
actually that many Muslims in Australia. There's like 2% of the population.
It's weird, and it's not something I can really go into any depth on here, but the way he is so specifically anti-Muslim immigration and the way that specificity is shown up in his own family is quite weird.
Fair enough.
What has the Muslim world done to him specifically, or her?
Nothing. It's just in the news. It's just
Okay.
Given
everything.
us mathematics, writing,
It's everything.
how dare
It's
they?
everything you read about. It's clearly they're a danger to us all.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Are
more worried
they,
about
though?
drunken idiots in the city attacking me as opposed
I
to
can't
an
believe you're
existential
asking that
threat.
question. Aren't you reading Australian newspapers, Dean?
I don't. I mean, I do. I guess I do read some of them, but
Yeah.
like the left wing ones.
Yeah. Anyway, we're all rather disappointed in my family member. We're all equally
But
disappointed.
the thing is, I mean, at the end of the day, they can vote how they want to vote. That's their right.
but sorry,
And I'd rather they at least they're being honest about how they voted. They're
But
not like
they-
secret One Nation voters.
they
That would be
are
worse.
very disillusioned, and all politicians are the same. This is sort of direct paraphrasing, but almost direct quotes. All politicians are the same. They're all corrupt. They're all out to fuck you up.
There is,
And
I mean,
Pauline Hanson's the only one who's speaking her mind very much along the Trump sort of lines.
to be fair though, when you look at, say, Hillary Clinton as an example politician, who is just very, very establishment.
Yep.
I'm not saying all politicians are the same, but Hillary Clinton is very similar to a lot of other politicians who perhaps maybe don't stand for something so much they just go with what's popular at the time. They
Absolutely.
say whatever they want to change someone's mind. And it's those people, I think, that cause the problem.
We can look at Bill Shorten. I mean, we can look at Malcolm Turnbull. We can
Malcolm Turnbull is very clearly for sale.
absolutely wherever they can get political advantage, that's where they'll go.
Yeah, this
Sometimes the populist position can be that political advantage. So at least you can work on it that way.
but then you look at other people like Angela Merkel, right? fucking amazing the way she just continues to stand up for the rights of refugees to come and live in Germany.
Yeah. She's taking a hard...
Every time there's a terrorist attack, she's like, it's not the refugees. No, you look in the wrong place, right? This is just, people with issues. And like, I love the way... I can't understand what she's saying, so I'm having to interpret based on the subtitles, which are non-existent on radio.
Do you want to apply a terrible accent to this?
No, I'm not going to do that. I just think that she has this strength of character that other modern politicians don't have. Boris Johnson doesn't have it. Malcolm Turnbull does not have it.
I think you can... Those sort of politicians, particularly
and I'm
that
going to wing here. Hillary Clinton doesn't have it.
Those sort of politicians that will come out in favour of particularly really vulnerable immigrants are very few and far between. Yeah, Angela
Justin
Merkel
Trudeau
seems to be one of them. Justin Trudeau, yeah, and
Decent
I'm trying
guy.
to think of many others.
Look, it's a small list.
It's a small list.
Greg Hunt, world's best minister.
Speaking of Greg Hunt, world's best minister, who is now our science minister, no longer in charge of the environment. He's taken Christopher Pyne's old position.
Well,
of
he
science
solved all the
and
problems of the
innovation.
environment.
That's what he's the best minister. So now they've got him in. Boom, you're in charge of science. Solve all of that.
There are no problems with the
He
environment.
recently came out and told the CSIRO that they had to keep their climate change division and they need to reverse course on their action, and that there was no negotiating with this. So Greg Hunt inadvertently saving the day.
Kind of. Well, they're still not back to the amount of science,
No, they're
climate
not. I
change
think it
scientists
was
they had
15
before the
jobs
cut.
he saved. But
Yeah, from the original cut of 45. So they're still down a bit.
So the only thing saving us is Liberal Party incompetence, basically.
Yeah. Well, somewhere along the way, I think someone must have done some horse trading, and in exchange for, say, Kevin Rudd not becoming the Australian representative, the candidate to become the next Secretary General of the United Nations, Greg Hunt had to reinstate a few climate scientists.
Did you hear? I heard this on Something Wonky. Apparently,
I think I know what you're going to talk about. Yeah.
that the actual the cabinet
They
voted,
voted
10 to
in
11
favour.
in favour of Rudd, and Turnbull did a captain's pick.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that. I did, however, you guys didn't mention this last week. My favourite thing about all of this was the way that Rudd, a suspected leaker from way back, immediately leaked all of the emails from Malcolm Turnbull where he said he was supporting him.
Yeah.
And it's like, Jesus, Kev, everyone always thought you were a leaker. Now he's like, you want to see something, right? Here's every email I've ever got from Malcolm.
I also love the comment that the guest commenter on Something Wonky said. Malcolm Turnbull had been described as a messy bitch who loves drama.
Oh, Jesus.
and she said, "This just proves it.
Yeah.
This just proves it." He took the captain's pick over the cabinet.
Which makes you wonder. A lot of people were saying that he was being forced from the right on this, but does he have a personal vendetta against Kevin Rudd for some reason?
Yeah, don't know.
I don't know. I found this interesting. Christopher Pyne came out and said that, look, we've made our decision. It's not going to be Kevin. Everyone needs to get over this, especially Kevin. I hate Christopher Pyne as an individual, but he's quite funny. He's quite sharp-witted. I like him. Do you know who else I like? Who's made it back in New South Wales in the Senate? David Leyonhjelm. Senator-elect number 12 for New South Wales. The last possible seat of contention he could have got, but he's back. The man who challenges the need for bicycle helmets and marijuana prohibition and
Halal
smoking laws.
certification.
Just like all kinds of crazy shit he has these parliamentary inquiries into. But I like his style.
He has a valid position to take in the parliament. And he says some things. Well, he certainly doesn't make less sense than the Liberal Party.
No. He's just double checking. Are we really sure this makes sense?
Yeah.
Bicycle helmets. We sure this works? I don't know what the parliamentary inquiry came back with, but I'm hoping guess. Bicycle helmets, yay.
Actually, and this, did you have anything else on that?
No,
right.
I'm just.
I was just something else that came up on Something Wonky, which I found really interesting, and I was just going to mention was the discussion around the plebiscite.
Mm-hmm.
And someone coined the phrase plebiscite, which I thought was good as well. And it was that they were comparing it to the whole Brexit thing, and we want to make sure what we're getting into before we launch one of these things.
We raised this before. We were talking about referendums and how retarded it is to do something on a 50-50 split.
And well, not only that,
I've used the R word twice.
the position that came up on Something Wonky is like, so what happens if it comes back as a no? It's not like the yes side will stop fighting for equal rights. This is not going to go away.
But
if they
at the
come back
same
with a
time,
no
it's
vote.
not like the no side will stop fighting.
No,
either.
no, not at all. But it's going to keep going. Yeah, it's exactly right. It's not going to stop no matter what this plebiscite comes back with. It's not binding, and if one side's not going to be bound by it, then why are we even doing it? It just seems like, talk about a waste of money for a royal commission. How about this plebiscite? This is just
I think
crazy.
all referendums are a waste of money. We keep getting asked about daylight savings.
If you're going to make it a binding,
who fucking cares? Just change the law, bring it in, or don't. I don't care. You're spending way too much money on when we should and shouldn't set our clock.
I don't know. When are we doing another referendum?
No,
on
we're
that?
not. We did fucking 4 in this country. Every time coming back is no.
I don't think it's coming back in a hurry. But
I'm just using examples of like ridiculous referendums they've done before. Like they,
yeah.
The longer this plebiscite
the one about
deal
Indigenous
drags-
recognition in the Constitution, all in favour of that. That should come up. But again, probably should just be in the Constitution. You don't need to ask.
Well,
people,
that's
just
why
fucking
you
put it in there.
can't have basic human rights reduced to a majority vote.
Well, this is what I was going to say. The more this goes on, the more angry I get that I'm being made to vote on someone else's, rights.
Don't ask me my opinion on it. This is something that should
Yeah.
be there already. Yeah.
Why are you giving me this power to determine for a minority whether they should have a right or not? This is ridiculous.
Whether they should be equal in the law to
Yeah,
me.
that's-
Exactly.
To talk about a bit more of a bitch about Turnbull, did you guys see the report suggesting that he may have donated up to $2 million to his own re-election campaign because
Well, it seems like it's almost a
funding
fact
was
now.
not there.
Oh, he couldn't.
Funding was not there. So all of this discussion around financial campaign finance reform. I don't think Turnbull's going to be the guy for that.
No.
He is not going to want to see those laws reformed.
But I mean, he's allowed to donate to his own campaign, isn't he?
Yeah, well, there would be a cap of $6,000 on an individual.
Even on his own, even for himself to donate to his.
Totally, yeah. Because why should he have more of a say than someone else? Because he's got $200 million in the bank.
No, I just thought there'd be some kind of
So we-
loophole.
we'll know-
if you personally want to spend money on your own campaign, I thought there'd be something like
We'll
that.
know for sure in February when it gets published, all the donations. But it's going to be a bit embarrassing for him, I think, when it does come out. It'd be way worse if he had have lost, if he had spent $2 million of his own money and then not been re-elected.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, the fucker only just scraped in. It's 76, 74.
So it's 2 million, some would say, bought the election.
Yeah. It may have flipped a couple of... It could be $2 million very well spent.
What kind of percentage is that? I don't even know what the totals are for how much they spent on these.
I couldn't tell you what the total was for Malcolm's re-election.
It seems like most...
This is on his personal
I believe
re-election.
it was his personal campaign. People were donating money to the Liberal Party on the express proviso that it was not to be spent on Malcolm.
Wow.
Allegedly. This is I can't prove any of this because this is what we're hearing
allegedly.
through the media.
Okay.
But I think that's quite funny. Malcolm is not a popular little cherub.
Not at all.
Yeah.
The right do not like their socialist leader. I'm quoting them.
Yeah. He is not dear leader. No.
I keep on informing him, he's your leader. Stop trying to throw him over the fence to us.
Yeah. We
Pinko-
don't want him either.
Pinko Turnbull is just not in favour at the moment. Yeah.
But I mean, I can't understand why he's denying it. It's going to come out in February.
Yes, he won't talk about it.
No.
It's like we're, not going to talk about campaign financing issues.
He may not be leader in February.
Yeah, but like, there is a time to be transparent and honest, and it's now.
Yeah.
Because if it comes out in February that you did spend this, you're just going to look like you were hiding it for no reason. You can't hide it, Malk.
Milk.
Come on, buddy. I know you listen to the show. I got plenty of other shit to talk about.
Carry on. Well, I was just going to mention, we've got the census on
I
Tuesday
fucking
night.
don't want to do the census.
Oh, this Tuesday.
No,
isn't it?
I'm in two minds about it. So, I mean, one of the big issues about the Tuesday night census is they made a change to legislation where they
retain
can
your
now
name
retain
and
your
address
name
for
for
4
4
years.
years. So, what this is about is what they want to do is they need a unique identifier so they can link census to census individual responses. So they're not interested in your name per se, but it's a unique identifier so they can see trends on how individuals respond, not you, Jason Murphy, but person X, but they have to have a unique identifier to make
Do you
that
know
link.
what? Do you know what's
Why
really
can't they
interesting, though?
anonymise that shit though?
Yeah,
I
just
mean,
assign a UUID.
Yeah.
You know what's really interesting though? Because they would not use electronic voting because it was not secure enough to trust with an election. Fuck you if my personal information is considered less of a threat than an election. That is not cool, man. Yeah, I don't know. I want to apply for a paper form and then I'm just going to leave the sections about my name and address out.
Oh, because they'll force you to fill it on the online one, won't they?
Yeah, in Andrew Field.
my parents, middle class Australia, have already applied for their paper-based form, so they can do that one.
Well, Xenophon and Scott Ludlam and a bunch of others have been calling for them to put on hold and reconsider the things, or to give people more time to get paper forms because apparently it's a bit hard to get the paper form.
So another good reason why Scott Ludlam made it in.
I love Scott.
He got back.
Ludlam.
He got back
good,
in as well.
Good guy, Scott. You're a good guy. Once again, friend of the show, always listens.
So have you already applied for your paper form?
No, I haven't. I would have to open my mailbox and get the form from my mailbox, the letter that tells you how to do it. And I have this thing against paper-based mail in general. Like all of my stuff it's either BPay View or it comes off directly with my credit card. I don't like paper mail. It's wasteful.
Do you have issues with jet fuel and buildings collapsing?
I don't.
No, but you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to be worried about personal details getting out there these days. It's just happening all the time.
Do you know the other worst thing about this is, right? The people who are working for the census, the volunteers, not volunteers, they get the job with the census, they're being encouraged to use their own personal devices to help people fill out the census form. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like they could just bring any old Android tablet with a keylogger while they're helping old people type stuff
Well,
in.
whatever. Who knows what they've been where they've been going on their
They're
personal.
still doing it through a web app, but at the same time, it's on a personal device, which you could do anything you want with.
Which could have all sorts of malware
Jailbreak
and
it,
stuff.
yeah, it could be malware loaded. Like it's just these people don't belong in society. The Australian Bureau of Statistics.
It's weird.
They're
It's
as
weird.
embarrassing as the ABC were when it was revealed they were basically colluding with the coalition. They just I don't know what to say. I'm disappointed that these statisticians have no connection to reality.
Well, I mean, I can understand why they want it because it will give them valuable data.
Yeah,
of
no,
trending
but it
data.
won't because anyone that is actually offended about their privacy being leaked is just going to lie on the forms.
You're right. Yeah, it might be a disincentive to be honest.
Like they're actually going to get worse data now as a result of this, at least for me.
Well, I'm going to be a bit more conservative with my responses because now I know that my name's linked to it. So
Well, this is exactly this is the point Dean's making. It's like they're going to get less data and maybe worse data and maybe
As
completely
it was,
misleading
I was a
data.
Jedi every year just because someone said it would be funny if everyone filled it out to make it officially on the form, and I still do it.
And to see if they can get funding as a political party or something.
Probably, yeah. I mean, people think Muslims are a risk to Australia. Jedis are the real risk. Those fuckers can literally control minds.
Actually, if you want to talk about a risk to Australia, why aren't we all condemning these white radicals that are out there these days? Did you hear about the Reclaim Australia member that was arrested in an anti-terrorism raid?
no.
No.
I think I saw a headline. I didn't read it.
Hang on, I'm just bringing it up because it was meant to be loaded already.
This is some
Philip-
great dead air.
Philip Galea was arrested in an anti-terrorism raid. So
Galea, that sounds foreign.
sounds foreign, but he's not. He's one of those hardcore Reclaim Australia guys, and he was arrested, and apparently they were in the process of planning some terrorist activities, and or at least what they could class as terrorist activities. I'm just waiting for the parade of white. What would you even call them? White
Apologists?
white a middle class white Christian leaders that they make go on all the news programs to apologise for and to renounce these people.
I do
immediately.
find that. Yeah, I find that ridiculous when they get like the Grand
Yeah.
Mufti of Australia on to condemn some terrorist
right.
actions. Like, the fuck does it have to do with this poor guy?
That's right. So we need these people out there now. Well,
Incidentally,
clearly,
if,
we know.
if they want to get Cardinal George Pell over, maybe come to Australia and then issue an apology on behalf of the Catholic Church, so we can also arrest him on other unrelated charges. I mean, that would be okay.
So apparently he was arrested. He was in possession of weapons, and they managed to track him making some kind of plans for some kind of raid and some activities. So
I wonder if Corey will comment on this.
almost certainly not. But he's one of the. He should be made to renounce it.
But
he
this
should,
is-
and
this
he'd
is
lose more voters, wouldn't he?
This is the thing I was talking about before. You actually have to reach these people who are disenfranchised and disillusioned with the system, who feel like they have a legitimate concern, and you have to actually be able to listen to their concerns and allay their fears. You have to, because you can't let these loons continue to vote for One Nation and try and ruin the country.
Yeah, but,
I mean, sorry, not all One Nation votes are going to ruin the country, just most of them.
Much
Sure, there are a
like
few.
much like there's many Muslim radicals that where their fears will not be allayed. I suspect that there's many of these kind of radicals that also their fears will not be allayed because their fears are completely irrational in the begin with, and they're not based on reality. They're just like they're clearly all the immigrants are causing problems, and we
Yeah, I think that. I mean, a lot of them, like they say, immigrants took my job. No, immigrants didn't take your job. Globalization just made it your
Shipped
job.
it overseas.
Shipped overseas.
Yeah.
Like I understand that their fears, they're drawing connections where there aren't any, but they've lost their job, for example, or they're finding it hard to get a job, or they're underemployed, or there is definitely a fear there you can address. And it's probably not the immigrants' fault. It's the fucking right-wing politicians you've been voting in who've been passing laws to allow businesses to ship your job off overseas.
But I mean, scapegoating what's different is as old as prostitution. It's never going to go away.
Are you just scapegoating prostitution right now, Frank?
That's my straw man for this argument.
prostitution.
Is it?
Are you
is it-
equating? Are you equivocating prostitution with terrorism? Frank?
No, but I mean, I'm suggesting that it's
Yeah,
something that will always be there.
Yeah. Well, but
when you need it, it's always there for you. If you're down, you need to feel a bit better.
As
Blaming
Dean's
They've got your back. No prostitutes.
as Dean's recommending, but I don't think this quite fits with the analogy. But as Dean's recommending, there's ways you can mitigate the more extreme versions of it,
Well,
and bring the majority of these people that are being misled back into mainstream.
It frustrates me to see time and again when the media presents these people as wackos and crazies, and there's nothing we could have done. We couldn't have seen this coming. Yeah, you fucking can see it coming. It's really obvious that there are people out there struggling who are disaffected and disillusioned. It's not rocket science, and there is stuff we can do. We just choose not to.
But to be fair, some of these people, for example, the Lint, the guy who did the Lint stand up, well, it wasn't the bombing, the
Sydney
shooting
siege.
guy, yeah.
the Lint siege.
Yeah.
He was a wacko, and he should have been treated as such, and should have been put in jail or put in some facility long before
Maybe
that.
restrained with a hood on.
Exactly, he should have been in a facility long before that. It wasn't about terrorism as such. This guy should have been assessed. He'd already been in the system.
This
and he
is
should have
the
been.
argument I make. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. Right? This guy is a wacko.
And apparently,
But
trucks kill people. And,
They do. Wow. Hey, apparently they do. That also too soon. You shouldn't be making that joke. It's inappropriate. I've been told. But the point is, they're not all wackos, right? And I'm talking about the people who vote for One Nation, the people who are members of Reclaim Australia. They're not wackos. They're just fucking. Really, they're
the
frustrated.
one
and
I
don't
know
what
is
else
not a
to do.
wacko.
But they don't know what else to do. They're just frustrated and they're venting.
Right, and they only see the world through a very small prism. They see little snippets on the news, and that's how they frame their world reference.
Yeah, we all suffer from confirmation bias. Mm-hmm. I mean, I see snippets on the news, and I'm like, yeah, there's going to be a liberal prime minister, like a lowercase liberal prime minister. It's a progressive country. Bill can do this. No, he fucking can't.
Which television shows were you watching where they thought that was possible? By the way,
Yeah. So my piece of could be douchebag filter news. I'm going to go ahead with this right now. So while holidaying in Mallorca, Jeremy Clarkson rescued 4 men who were being swept out to sea on their inflatable mattresses after the tide came in, and then put them out. So 2 Frenchmen and 2 Germans, it sounds like a joke, but it's not, were rescued by Jeremy Clarkson, and they burst out laughing when they realised who it was that was coming to save them. Clarkson posted photos of himself and the men, and saying that he was done rescuing 4 guys from the sea, he's going for a quick pint. And then he took aim at Boris Johnson, saying that Jeremy Clarkson makes a much better representative of Britain to Europeans. He'd be a better foreign minister than Boris Johnson, is what he said.
so this is what Jeremy's doing in his time off now.
They
He's
watch.
out there
Right?
just-
He's done punching people in the faces. Now he's saving lives.
I don't want to see him bare-chested and running red togs.
Wait, sorry, where was this? Was this actually in the north? Oh, Mallorca. Okay, I was going to say this happened in the Northern Territory. or
No,
something.
no. That'd be even better.
That'd be freaking crazy. You're up there.
No,
and Jimmy
I just
Clarkson.
thought, look, I like Jeremy Clarkson. He entertains me. I understand he's a right-wing loon, but he entertains me. He's an entertaining loon. Like Christopher Pine is kind of funny to look at and with his jokes.
He's funny, and he'd be funnier if he wasn't in a position of power where he can genuinely injure people. So, yeah, it'd be more amusing.
Yeah, it would be, but
Yeah.
he's pretty funny.
Like Trump's funny until he actually wins that election, in which case, not so funny.
This comes back to what I'm saying, where everyone's like, "Oh, there's crazies voting Trump." They're not crazy, right? And you could reach them if you chose to. I was on holiday in the Northern Territory.
Could you reach Trump?
I barely saw the
Dean,
news.
could you
No,
reach
can't.
Trump
You
and
can reach
talk
his
him
supporters. I barely saw the news. I walked into a thing. Hillary's walking on stage with some grey-haired white guy that's not Bernie Sanders. What the fuck is that about?
If you're going to pick a grey-haired white guy, you had the good one. You could have
You
chosen.
had one right there who would have secured you your votes. And she didn't. She went with some guy, Kane. I don't even know who he is.
Exactly.
Sounds like a
No,
bad
no, no,
guy.
And exactly, this is why Tim Kaine. Who is he? No one knows, and who cares? It's the least amount of damage you can do. You just want to pick someone that isn't.
Establishment choice, an
Absolutely.
old white guy.
Absolutely. He also used to be the DNC chair, so he used to be in charge of raising money for the DNC.
Yeah.
So, more of the same.
I'm already wanting to yawn on radio, and it's just not going to work. I read a really interesting article by Michael Moore. I forwarded it to you guys during the week. I don't know if you saw it, but it ties into how he thinks Donald Trump is going to win the election. He listed 5 reasons. I'm going to talk about these now because why not?
Yeah, let's do it.
So his first one, he says, the number one reason why he thinks Trump's going to win is what he calls his Midwest math. So he reckons Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin are the problem. They're in the Rust Belt, these places where factories used to be, where jobs used to be. It's not there right now. They have all 4 of those states have recently elected Republican governors to replace their Democratic ones.
So you right there, you have your Pauline Hanson voters.
You have your Pauline Hanson voters, right? Romney lost by the amount of electoral seats that those states hold. So if nothing changes, and all of the people who hate Hillary keep voting anti-Hillary, and all the people who hate Trump vote anti-Trump, your blue state, red state stay the same, and those 4 states flip, Trump wins. Which, scary. His second number reason, angry white men. They've just had a black man telling him how to live for 8 years, and now they can let a woman boss them around.
Yeah.
So they're probably never going to vote.
Guys who can't name the female actor or the black actors.
Yeah, ow. I'm not saying you're an angry white man, but you draw your own conclusions here. Correlation, not causation. You know what I'm saying? Number 3, the Hillary problem. She has a 70% dislike rating.
Unfavourables, yeah.
According to Michael Moore, very few people are going to wake up excited on election day to get down there and vote for her. And you have to actually, it's voluntary voting.
Actually, on this point, so we listen to the Majority Report a fair bit, and Sam Cedar loves taking people to task and logically arguing with people, and he got trolled by a couple of people during the week, but logically arguing people about, so when someone says, I may just not vote, and he'll argue with them on an individual level about why you should vote and vote in a certain way. But that's not what we're really worried about, is it? We're not talking about the micro situation. We're talking about the macro situation, mass apathy. So if people don't turn out, that's the problem.
This is what we say, Hillary problem. It's not that Trump's going to win because people want to vote for Trump. It's that people aren't going to show up and vote for Hillary.
They're just not going to vote at all.
And the people who do vote for Trump are pretty fervent, excited, and they may even encourage their friends to come out. Hey man, we've got to do this. It's important. We vote for Trump. He can make America great again. The number 4 reason, the depressed Sanders vote. This actually contributes to number 3 above. Sure, the people who were all in Bernie's camp will probably wind up voting for Hillary. Sure, they will. But they're not going to be bragging to their mates about it. They're not going to be trying to encourage people to come along.
We're not talking about... at that point, you're talking about people that are politically aware.
Yeah.
We're talking about people that...
But they're not going to try and make their friends politically aware.
That's right. They're not, and it's not the people that are just sitting on the sidelines waiting for some kind of direction and going, I suppose I'll vote. They're not going to do it. Yeah.
And his number 5 reason why Trump's probably going to win is what he calls the Jesse Ventura effect, which is those people who are willing to just vote for some crazy option because it's on the page. Because once you're in the polling booth and no one else is watching, this might seem funny.
Which is how the Brexit vote got over a bit as well, apparently.
Yeah, and I read those 5 reasons that he presented, and I was like, yeah, that pretty much aligns with a lot of my thinking. I didn't even consider the Jesse Ventura effect. I'm a victim of that. When someone presents me with a form and it's just ridiculous, and there's an option there that's like the fuck you
cat's
option,
on that form.
I pick the fuck you option.
Yeah, I think it's a bit simplistic to just narrow it down to 5 reasons like that. I think there's a multiply of hundreds of things going on that could swing it either way for Hillary or Trump.
Yeah, maybe.
There's some base facts you mentioned that, there's a populist support behind Trump of all those disaffected people you're talking about. There's a huge disapproval rating for Hillary. You've got it's not mandatory to vote. You've got the Trump phenomenon where his campaign organisation is barely there. They can't control what comes out of his mouth.
That's right. So you've got, on one side, you've got Hillary, who has a massive political organisation who will literally be bussing people to the polling stations. Yeah. And on the other side, you've got almost nothing, apparently.
You've got Trump attacking war hero families. You've got Trump, naked pictures of his wife being released out into the media.
I think that only helped him.
Not the one with
I think he leaked them himself.
Yeah, I think he got Kevin Rudd to leak them. Kevin's an expert.
Not the one where Melina's laying down naked with another woman. That's going to put the evangelical support base off. They can't deal with that.
But it wasn't. So here's the thing, right? Some evil person leaked those for Trump. So I think, if anything, it'll galvanize his supporters to vote for him. Like, oh my God, look at the levels those Democrats will stoop to try and keep Trump out of the White House.
If it was just naked pictures of Melina, it would have been fine. But Melina with another naked woman, no. The evangelicals will not abide by that.
I think the evangelicals these days are excellent businessmen. And I think the head of those evangelical churches will be telling their people who to vote for. And that may well be Trump.
True.
Who knows? But you're right. There may be that issue. But God, those 5 points that Michael Moore put down, they're hard to argue with.
They're just his top 5. There's other reasons, but these 5 things together, you're like, oh man.
I think because we live in a land of compulsory voting, I don't think we quite understand how voter apathy might work. I mean,
but you've got another problem with the Republican Party is having a schism. Not everyone's on board within the party supporting Trump.
True.
And how that plays out is going to be interesting.
But you've been aware of the Democratic National Convention as much as I am.
Bit of
That
a
wasn't
schism there.
exactly a united
No,
front.
Yeah, yeah.
But they put
Both
that
sides.
No. But the difference was it's been put to bed. Bernie's
it?
come on side.
I don't think it has been put to bed.
Man,
This is
Bernie was getting booed. I saw he was on
Yeah.
stage. Like his supporters were booing him.
And
He was
the
like, "Go for
story,
Hillary."
the
Boo.
story you're getting is there was the inside the DNC story and then there's the outside DNC story. And the outside DNC story, I was listening to a few podcasts from people who were outside the whole week, and it was a very different thing. I mean, you had a lot of the Bernie delegates basically weren't given credentials to come in for the following days, and so a lot of the DNC was filled with seat warmers. They just brought people in to fill the seats and things like that. And then outside, you had a hell of a lot more protesting going on than you had at the RNC.
Yeah, I still think it's significant though that Bernie publicly endorsed Hillary. You haven't got the full endorsement of Trump in the Republican Party.
Yeah, for what it's worth, for what these endorsements are worth, and as everyone keeps pointing out, and as even Bernie has pointed out himself, his endorsement is only worth so much because most of the people that were following were more aware of the policies that he was touting. So unless Hillary comes to the party on those policies, which she has to a certain extent, they're not going to come on board. That's what they're interested in. They weren't following the man necessarily. They really were following more politically aware.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
But all your points are valid. Who knows how it's going to work out?
At this stage, Trump could well self-destruct. Like he's a
we can only
literal
hope.
he's a literal powder keg with a toupee.
He is
that
working
acts as a
hard at
fuse.
it.
Yeah.
I think the other point was his own campaign manager. What is the quote was when he came out? I can't remember which crazy thing he said because there's so many. But someone had asked the email that came out from his campaign stuff and from the campaign manager specifically was. The candidate is in charge, basically saying I've got no input on this.
So yeah, basically the most prominent members of his campaign team are sending signals out to pretty much say this crazy shit that's going on. This is not us. This is the candidate directing all this.
I want to be able to work again in this industry.
Exactly.
The candidate is in control. And that they were described as professionals, and that's not the fact that they're really professional, really good. No, they earn their money in this job, so they really want to be able to do it again.
Well, I mean, you wouldn't know it's a risk when you signed on to work with Trump anyway. Yeah. When he's like, "Will you be my campaign manager?" You'd be like, "I don't know, Donald. Could we maybe have a game show where me and 12 other campaign managers compete on national television to see who gets eliminated last?"
Maybe you can just fire us on air.
Yeah,
I don't know.
maybe because I think you're a fucking idiot. No, I'm fired. Winner.
Well, the last guy he fired, Corey Lewandowski, is still getting paid.
Yeah.
By him.
Look, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be
working
interesting.
for
But it could be, just... it'd be interesting to see how the world copes with President Trump.
Oh, yeah, I don't really want to... I'd rather not get to this. And I don't like Hillary at all, but I don't want to think of a president. At least with Hillary, you can predict probably what she's going to do.
No, it's just status quo.
She is rather hawkish, though. Those speeches at the DNC, like she was coming out very hawkishly in those speeches. It was like we are very much beating the drums,
Well,
more so than Obama was.
I mean, as a side note, if she gets in, it's pretty much a green light for Israel to continue on with its oppressive measures against its Palestinian population. She won't be changing tune on that. I don't know if Bernie will have any leverage on that one.
And probably upping the tempo on ISIS and whatever other opposition du jour comes up. Yeah.
Mind you, with Trump in charge, all those things could equally well happen. One day...
You don't know.
You don't know. Like, it's just, you just roll a dice.
He's making it up as he goes along, which is just, that's...
Yeah, which is just as terrifying.
This is a case of better the devil you know, and I hate to say this lesser of two evils is the right thing to go, but in this case...
I think most people have been saying that. It's an election of, picking from the lesser of two evils.
But in this case, absolutely right. Whereas the lesser of two evils in some previous ones probably wasn't that shades of grey. In this one, it's like, oh.
Well, you got to remember, though, that the last third-party candidate that was elected for America was Abraham Lincoln. So third-party candidates are always a valid option.
He was a Republican.
Yeah, this is back when it was Democrats and the Whigs. He was a third-party candidate.
The Republican was the up-and-coming party.
Yeah. And that worked out pretty good for him. A lot of people talk favour about Honest Abe. So maybe what you need is a third-party candidate with a massive beard and a top hat.
So
Someone we can trust.
I've got one more piece to talk about. We're going to have to circle all the way back to the issue with juvenile detention in the Northern Territory.
Oh, wow.
Cartoonist Bill Leake for The Australian decided to comment on the issue.
Oh, I saw that cartoon that you're talking about,
for you
right?
guys, you've probably seen it.
Yeah.
So for the listeners, basically it shows what looks like to be an Indigenous police officer holding by the collar a young Indigenous youth, like of about 5 or 6, presumably, or 10 years old, presenting it to his Indigenous father, who's holding a beer can, saying you need to teach him. Well, the exact quote is, "You'll have to sit down and talk to your son about personal responsibility." To which the father responds, "Yeah, righto. What's his name then?" So basically what Bill Leake was doing was having a jab at the issue, saying, "Oh, it's the responsibility of the parents is why these children are in that situation," and so forth. But he uses a very stereotypical trope to frame his...
I think he was trying to say
opinion.
it's generational, you know?
I think he was punching down, to be honest. He used
Very
a
much.
stereotype, which is like red meat to white Australia suggests. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
this is...
You can talk to any middle-class Australian, they'll probably agree with that,
Yeah.
that stereotype.
I saw that cartoon and I was like, he's trying to be controversial, I think, and he's gone too far because I find this offensive.
I don't know, what's his material like normally? I don't know.
I'm
I
not-
don't
Do you
know
find
if his
political
work-
satire cartoons funny ever?
Some of them I do, but like if they're...
He
if
has
they're-
won a few Walkley Awards, so he's... But he has had some controversial ones, like there was one where he had a comment about renewable energies in India, where he had some Indians eating solar panels.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
And that
Do you
wasn't
think
seen
the
too well.
cartoon maybe started out with like a white cop handing back the black kid to the black father, and then the editor was like, "Well, that's just fucking racist. You have to change it." So he got his brown pencil out and he was like, "Better," and the editor was like, "Fucking fine, just publish it."
I think
the
the
candidate is in control.
And see, Bill Leake's gone on the defensive, saying, "But this happens. It's free speech. This is the sort of thing that happens." Well, there are bad parents. There's bad white parents. There's bad Indigenous parents. But you've done it as a trope, which is basically signal to all Aboriginal parents are bad. Is what people read into that.
Bearing in mind that the job of a political cartoon is to poke fun at a situation while making you think about it, and it certainly achieved the making you think about it.
It made us think about it, but it wasn't a clever way. It was punching down using
No,
a
it's
trope.
not.
I don't find political cartoons ever to be clever.
Ever.
I don't know. They're not really.
It's fairly strong.
Okay.
Ever.
Look, maybe
There's-
there will be a couple, and I've just missed them, and they've been clever.
Yeah,
but
I've
the regular
found-
ones you see, it's just like, oh god.
I've
Well, if
found
we're talking
famous
about
ones where world leaders have nuclear weapons as cocks has always been quite amusing.
Okay, so we know your level, Frank.
So dick jokes.
So what does everyone think of Scott Adams, you know, the writer of Dilbert? Did you guys ever like Dilbert?
I love Dilbert.
You love Dilbert?
That was office politics as opposed to global
Yeah,
politics.
of course. Well, there was a little bit of commentary sometimes, but mostly just very much office politics. I don't know. Have you? I
Bill
I
Leake's
didn't-
no
I'm not a
Dilbert.
huge fan of Dilbert.
not a huge fan. Okay, you didn't find. I mean, I always thought I thought he was very reflective of the office environment. He did it quite well.
Yeah, I'll admit that.
And smart, subversive ways. But turns out he's just one step away from being a bit of a men's rights activist. Scott
really?
Adams, yeah.
Which step?
I don't know, but I mean, he wrote a blog because he's basically he's not a Hillary fan. He's basically saying he's going to vote Trump. Which, when I read someone who's like his material seems so clever, and I've read it for years, and not recently, but for a long time, and I always found it very clever and fairly insightful. And being in an office environment, it totally spoke to me. But
Being clever and being a douchebag is not mutually
no,
exclusive.
not at all, not at all. I was just a little bit surprised. I always have an elevated opinion of people that amuse me quite so well. Anyway, so this is one quote that came out with. Let me say this again, so you know I'm not kidding. Based on what I know about human body and the way our thoughts regulate our hormones, the Democratic National Convention is probably lowering testosterone levels all over the country, literally, not figuratively. He was saying, seeing women succeed and powerful women succeed makes men feel lessened and therefore lowers their testosterone levels. He goes on. There's a whole blog post just going on. He talks about the science of it. Apparently this isn't the first time. He's very much been on the line of the men's rights activist. It was a little bit disappointing, and it was a bit of an icon, a cultural icon for me. being taken down and just completely discredited. It was a little bit sad.
I mean, let's be honest here.
No, let's lie a bit.
Okay, let's
Just
lie
a
a
little
bit.
bit.
I would begrudgingly vote for Hillary because she's not Donald Trump. If they had to put any other candidate forwards, I don't trust her. She just seems too crooked.
Do you take a measure of your
no,
testosterone levels before you
it's
vote?
nothing to do with that. It's more like, do you really want to establish another political dynasty? Do you want to be like Clinton, Bush, Clinton, Bush, Clinton, Bush? Like, there's just so much wrong with their candidates.
That's sounding a little bit cuckish there, dude.
Hillary is, yeah.
This is a joke just for me and Franco, obviously.
No, I can understand if someone was like, I'm not going to vote. I wouldn't condemn him for it.
No. I mean, we're on the same page. This is why the whole voter apathy thing and Michael Moore's points. I'm going like, I can totally get why. I can totally see why a bunch of people.
I'd totally vote for Hillary, but it would be begrudgingly, and I wouldn't be happy about it.
But I mean, and stepping back to that, I've been in a situation in Australia where we get fined if we don't vote, and I've considered not bothering to go.
Not many people get fined.
I know, but I've considered not going to vote, even though I can go in there and informally vote, and it wouldn't be an issue.
You just need to befriend a Jehovah's Witness. They don't have to vote, and then you can just say you're a Joho, and you'll be cool.
But I'm thinking, so in a country where they make it a pain in the ass to vote, which they do in America, can be the lines seem incredibly long sometimes. And you've got
First fucking world problem, by the way.
Mate,
the line seems dreadful.
No, but like if you've got to literally wait hours in a line, why are you going to wait hours in a line to vote for someone you don't actually fucking like?
True.
It's that's why Michael Moore's points seem so valid. It's like, fuck it, you better make it really easy for them to vote Hillary, or they're not going to come out for you.
Well, another relevant point that you're bringing up is the Supreme Court ended voter protection rights. And basically you had immediately, because obviously people like Joseph Kennedy thought that, we don't need him anymore. Racism's over.
Racism's in. We've got a black president, so racism is gone. It's something we don't have to deal with anymore.
So, I mean...
I didn't get that memo.
I'm not full bottle on this, so I'll probably botch this in explanation, but certain states or perhaps
Hang on.
states...
Jason, do you feel the testosterone going down in the room right now?
would have to, if they wanted to do changes to their voting laws, would have to get it reviewed by the federal government. And to be approved.
There were certain states that were on the list that had to go through this extra layer of bureaucracy in order to get these changes put through if they tried to propose something like that.
So they got rid of that. There's still a procedure where you can get put back onto that, but they repealed it. So immediately, North Carolina started changing their voter laws, which were proven to target black voters.
Yeah. And there's quite famous, there was that late show by Asif Mandvi, where he went and talked to the DNC head of that state. And the guy just came out and said, well, yeah, getting these people off the rolls makes it good for the RNC because it gets getting black people off the rolls. They vote for Democrats. So, and he was quite open about it.
To be fair, he did have a bit of a stake in that particular argument as well. He wants to make the Republic. He's the chair of the DNC.
Yeah, no.
That'd be like
he was honest
Turnbull.
about saying getting...
I'm just saying that'd be like asking Malcolm Turnbull if Kevin Rudd should be the Secretary General of the United Nations.
Hang on, I'm not sure.
I'm just saying he's a little partisan, that's all I'm saying, right?
No, but I mean, this was
the guy you're asking.
He's incredibly partisan. He was being very partisan against black
He actually
people.
slipped up. So basically, the Republicans have been championing these laws to say this will stop voter fraud, but he went off the reservation and started saying no, these were specifically to stop.
I think a direct quote. I think a direct quote is if those lazy black bastards go nowhere.
Yeah,
you said chair of the DNC, not the I didn't know it was a Republican.
No, chair of the RNC.
Oh right, I thought it was a Democrat. That was talking. I was like, no, because that guy's got like
that's why I was confused. It was the RNC, and
check your testosterone levels, buddy.
And he was
that's going to become a thing now.
just like
on the BAP.
Just like cuckitude will be a thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, I feel like more politicians out there need to actually pay attention to their constituents. This country and America and England, they're constantly ignoring what they're saying. They're not learning the lessons of history at all. No one, no response. Okay.
Nothing we have said in this past hours has been of
the
consequence.
level of testosterone has dropped to the level now where Jason has become mute.
Jason trying to multitask like a woman.
All right, fair enough.
Well, has anyone else got anything left to go?
I think we're good.
I think that's a wrap, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening. I've been Frago.
I've been Jason.
I am begrudgingly supporting Hillary.